Did you know? Back in 1993, Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam got into a street fight in New Orleans because a random guy, called Eddie Vedder a sellout. Why did this get to him? Because it triggered a voice in Vedder that already existed, a demon that told Vedder, "You're an imposter. Your music's fake. You're not real." Fame and money, they don't protect you from these inner critics, and that's why today you're watching this video. If you've ever caught yourself spiraling after a tiny mistake, if you've ever heard a voice in your head that sounds suspiciously like someone you don't like, this video is for you. I'm going to take you on my year-plus long journey of clearing the clutter of voices. And this is part 2 in my series. My first video was, why do we choose people who mirror our harshest critic? Now in this second part, I'm gonna make sure you know my 4-step process. And I am in steps 3 and 4. So I am in the middle of this right now. I am not done, and I don't think anyone ever is. So this is my process of becoming, and I hope that I can help you with it. Most of us are running scripts in our head that aren't even ours, and I want to help you reclaim it. So first, in this video, I'm gonna walk you through my 3 chapters of growth that I've had in my clearing the clutter of voices journey and what it's looked like for me. The first part, chapter 1, April 2024 to August 2024. 1, setting the stage, me. A voice in my head always saying, "You're not good enough and you're not doing enough." Also during this time, I made some changes in my life. In June, I distanced myself from a friend who I had thought was a friend, but I'll go into that story a little later. And then in August, I finally cut off a toxic ex. Finally. And I'll tell you about his voice later. In chapter 2 of my voice journey, I noticed my own pattern. So from September to December 2024, I saw September, I took this yoga class and I was really mean to myself. I was like, "Sarah, you don't belong here. You're taking this one class and everyone else does this all the time. They're so much better than you." And I saw it and I was like, Again, noticing the voices, negative voice in October. You know that ex I ghosted in chapter 1 of this story? I could hear his voice in my head when I judged someone's bumper sticker. Chapter 3, reclaiming my voice. May of July 2025. In May, I did a stand-up comedy routine, 5 whole minutes in front of strangers, and I was vulnerable, but I didn't harshly criticize myself. I could distance myself from the critic. In June, I joined a rugby team, and I've never played rugby, but I was doing the moves, and I could see that I was being nice to myself. I wasn't criticizing myself for not understanding fast enough. And then in July, I noticed that I met a new therapist, actually, and she was kind of dismissive of me, not really validating. And I noticed the voice in my head that felt hurt by that. And instead of spiraling, I noticed it and journaled about it. The negative voices haven't totally disappeared, but the voices that are left, the demons, they're not just schizophrenic voices. The voices that are left are much kinder. They're much more accepting. And I've borrowed from some people who had positive voices, but I have made them my voice. So like I said, I'm in parts 3 of 4 of my 4-part process that I made up all by myself. So this video has 4 parts. 1, identify the negative voices. 2, parse them out. 3, build yourself back up again. And 4, open yourself up again. And go out there in the world intentionally. And I have a lot of personal examples to back all this up. So part 1, identifying the negative voices. Let's start with this. What voice are you anchoring to? What is an anchor? Well, imagine you're in the middle of an ocean of waves and you're in a boat and the storm is happening, because the negative voices often happen when times are bad. You are anchoring yourself. You are grounding yourself with particular voices that appear during those moments of being lost. Those anchors are what are grounding you and holding you in place. So we need to curate them. What voices are you anchoring to? Some of the negative voices might sound like this. Sarah, you're such a dumbass. You misplaced your car keys again? Sarah, you're going to ask for help again? You're such a burden to people. Of course you messed up, Sarah. You always mess up. Now these voices, they don't come from nowhere. They came from parents, caregivers, whatever. But before we go into that, we're going to split up these voices into two camps. The conditional voices and the unconditional voices. Now the reason I split it up like this is because you have a ton of voices in your head. You might have the people pleaser, the judger, the goody two-shoes. You know, these are kind of performative, but it simplifies it if you just narrow the voices down into two camps. So, one, conditional voices. The voices that say, you are only good enough or worthy if you meet a certain standard. Or two, unconditional. You are worthy because you exist. Unless you like causing people harm in any way, then you're not. There are so many conditional voices that we might be exposed to growing up. I mean, there's the, did you get enough good grades? There's the, were you good to your sister? If you weren't, then you're a terrible person. Like, your caregivers didn't really mean to do this to you, but they have been instilled in your head. But I want to be clear with the unconditional voices that I'm not telling you to only keep voices in your head that are toxically positive. Toxically positive voices are ones that dismiss accountability. They say, oh, you are super good no matter what. Or, you didn't do anything wrong, Sarah. Just keep going. You don't mess up at all. Because the voices, you want them to be real. And one way that I think about this is that you want the voices to give yourself empathy. You want to have empathy for yourself, because empathy means that you are really embodying and understanding the feelings of someone. And it's oftentimes when we're ourselves, it is hard to empathize with ourselves, oddly. So if you put yourself into a lens of self-empathy, seeing your situation a little more objectively and being kind and compassionate, but still holding yourself accountable, then that is a super great place to be in. Those are the voices that you want. I want you to do an exercise here, and I want you to look at some of your real life relationships, whether they are your friends group, work buddies, text chains, Facebook, Instagram, communities you're a part of, and as a group or whatever. I want you to write down, or just do it in your head, answer these three questions. What does this person or group want from me? Like, really, actually want from me? 2, do I feel like I have to perform around them? 3, after I talk to them, do I feel more like myself or more small? Gosh, this could go into a discussion totally about the false self and our mask and performance, but we can't get into that right now, Sarah. Just keep on track. Okay, so keep in mind, you're not judging people negatively. You are just looking for patterns and trying to keep yourself sane. The voices that you absorb most are the ones that echo in your mind, so we need to be mindful of them. Now look, you might think, Sarah, this is so obvious. The voices, they're supportive or they're not supportive. It's obvious, okay? No. And here, it's little story time for you. Story time of the friend who actually wasn't safe. So I had a friend for a long time. This went under my radar for a while. Oh, this friend always wanted to talk to me, always picked up my calls, and, that seemed great. She asked questions, and I thought that she really cared about me. But there were signs that it wasn't so great. Like when I shared something vulnerable, she kind of put herself above me. Like I would share bad, negative things in my relationship, and she would say, gosh, Sarah, I would never let my partner do that to me. Or I would share something positive, something that went great in my life, and she'd be like, well, that's good. But have you thought about, have you looked for the drama in this situation? She wasn't helping me grow. She was actually making herself feel smarter. But if I was going off the check boxes of, is she a supportive friend? Is she answering my calls? Is she there for me? She, pretty much answered all the boxes, except for the one Does this person make me feel small? Now, this is why when you do this exercise, you can't lie to yourself, because then you're just telling yourself you have good friends when you don't, which I've been there, and you don't want to do that. So really look closely at your friend group, because as we know, the people that we surround ourselves with, they really get in our heads. Now that we've looked at our external people and those voices, we're going to look at our internal monologue. The narrator in your head, it might be pretty sneaky. And again, we want to look, as I've emphasized, for the times when things are not going well. Because when they're not going well, you're going to have this voice in your head appear at your dinner table of voices. You know, if you want to make a metaphor of it and see like these voices in the conversation that they're having, do it. You know, I'm not a visualizer, but do it. Then you can see that there's this voice that comes in sometimes, and that voice is wearing your favorite sweater, but it ain't nice to you. Some things that voice might say are, don't mess this up, people are watching. Or, I just want you to do better, that's why I'm so mean to you. Or, you're lucky that anyone even puts up with you. Eesh. So they might come off like they're trying to teach you something, like they're coaches or tough love friends, but if the energy is tight, shaming, or performative, that's not love, that's control. Quick interruption to subscribe to my channel. Part 2. Give it distance, or in rare cases, cut it off. So, you've looked at the people in your life, and you've said what they want for you. Maybe this is a great list, and everyone loves you, and you can click out of this video. That's great. But if there's someone who stands out as like, you're gonna have to decide what to do with that person. You can just distance yourself from someone. You don't have to cut them off. In fact, it's the very last resort to cut someone off. And distance is appropriate when it's someone that maybe you love. Maybe it's someone you can't fully remove. So maybe it's family, but you want to stop treating this like gospel. You treat it kind of like a stranger making a comment in the grocery store. You don't pay it any mind, you let it pass on by. And like I said, too, cutting off is rare, and that is for the truly toxic situations. Truly. And like I said, I have done the cutoff, and I cut off my ex, which was so wonderful and freeing because he undermined my intelligence, my independence, my instincts. I felt like I couldn't own my mind because it had to pass through his filter, and this was after I was gone from him. Like I said in my chapter 1, 2, and 3 of my Clearing the Voices journey, in chapter 2, I noticed my ex's voice. I was in the parking lot of a grocery store, and I saw a car with a bumper sticker that said, "God is good," and it was on a pretty old, crappy looking car. And I had this thought in my head, and it was not, this is not me, okay? And it said, gosh, if God is so good, why is your car so crappy? Give me a sec, and I was like, that is not my voice. I had this whole unsettled feeling. So I recognized the voice as not my own. Also, to add in this section, you might have friends that are definitely supportive of you. They love you and they want the best for you, but they might not know how to handle you in the best, most constructive way. So I have a friend, and I love her, but she gave me some advice that was a bit toxically positive. I was trying to tell her about a situation where I wanted her true feedback, and she was pretty much telling me, oh, that person you're talking about should kind of move on. Put it in the past. Past is past. And while I know where she was coming from, she was trying to be on my side and make me feel better. However, that's more toxic positivity, and I love her. I want her as a friend. So I told her, I explained clearly how I would have preferred that she responded in that situation, and we came to some sort of agreement. Keep your good friends. Hold them close. Part 3, building yourself back up intentionally. Once you start filtering out those negative voices, the silence can be a little disorienting. It's like you've cleaned out your closet, and now what are you gonna put back in there? Because it's not enough just to notice the bad voices. We have to anchor to good ones. On purpose. When I think back to the other examples that I gave you all, the rugby, the yoga, the stand-up routine, it's not only that the critical voices went away, it's that the more productive, better, good ones have gotten louder. Kindness, encouragement, reality checks that feel like love and not shame. I have started reaching for those voices, and one voice I am so lucky to have is my partner's voice. He is someone who I now have made a voice in my head, because you have the power to create the voices in your head. And he lets me know that I am lovable, that I am capable, that I am smart, that I am funny, that I am precious. These are the kinds of voices that I want in my head. And this is in contrast to much of my childhood, unfortunately, and the messages that I got from most of my exes. And again, I chose those voices, but now I'm making a conscious choice to make them go away. And of course, some people don't have a partner to lean on. Whether you don't have a partner or not, I know from experience that making yourself curate a good, loving voice towards yourself can be super difficult. It's like you feel like you don't deserve the positive voice. So I realize it might not be possible if you don't have a friend or you don't have someone close to you. In which case, there are a couple options here. One is a fictional character. If you watch a show and you're motivated by someone, they're encouraging, you can put their voice in your head. Another option, which I actually know some people who have used this and it has worked to build up their voice, and that is the voice of God. Now, this is weird coming from me because I'm somebody who used to think that God was a fairy tale, because it is kind of a fantasy fairy tale, and that's kind of how I grew up with thinking that. And this is the newest voice that I'm putting in my head, and it's a voice of unconditional love. I hear God's voice occasionally. It's very new to me, and it happens maybe once every couple of days right now. I'm ingraining this voice. And this is because I started talking to people where God had entered their life, and I wanted to learn more. So exercise time. Just take 60 seconds, and I want you to think of someone, a person, whether it's real, fictional, spiritual, imagine, that feels kind, safe, and steady. This could be a friend, a parent, a TV character, or another version of yourself. Then I want you to think of 3 things that this person might say to you during those times when your boat is rocking around, when it's not going great in your life. That's when you really need the voices. And what are some of those things that that person would say to you? And then part 4. This is also where I am at. This is where all of it starts to show up out loud. Let me start with a story. So I had an appointment with a new therapist last week, and things were going pretty well. But near the end, I was deciding to show her my muscles, literally flexing mid-session, actually kind of interrupting her. I have ADHD. What do you expect? And her response in that moment was, "Oh, nice." And that's how she said it, okay? It was kind of dismissive. It kind of like acknowledged. It was like, meh. But in a way where she didn't really seem to mean it. And then she moved on like nothing happened. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. And it felt dismissive, like the real me, the person who shows off her muscles randomly, wasn't really fully loved or welcomed. Welcome. She doesn't have to love me yet. And it got me thinking, because I want to have people in my life. If I'm going to bring a therapist in my life, I want someone who's endeared when I show them. I'll show you. I'm very proud of them. When I show them my muscles midsection. There are plenty of people that don't like this quirkiness, but my therapist, I want her to be endeared by this. If you want to see my muscles, I'm going to link a pull-up video right here for you to check out that I'll have just released. I did notice that this kind of opened a childhood wound because when I was little, I felt like I wasn't loved fully for who I was. And I could feel this kind of like, in my body. But as we're learning, I didn't let that overtake me. I acknowledged that this is the wound that was coming up, and I was able to watch it go by. like I was listening to a stranger in a grocery store, not paying them any mind. Well, I cried for a few minutes first, okay? But I noticed it, people. I'm still a human, alright? So this version of me right here, the one here, hi, this is one that is coming out because I've been around people and voices that are welcoming and loving towards me, which has allowed me to branch out. Now, I don't want to go into a room with a bunch of negative Nancys and who are judgmental with me and try to just, go ahead like, okay, I'm so strong, I can totally get your voice out of my head. Like, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to disrupt my psyche like that. I'm good to keep it slow. Because these people that you bring into your life, they really matter. They really matter because they affect the voice in your head. I am so much more careful about the people I get into my life now. I had a girl who I met at the gym, and she was nice, okay? We actually went to a girls' event together. She invited me to. But I just didn't feel like her values matched with mine. Once I started talking to her, I was like, okay, she's a nice person. There's nothing wrong with her. But if I'm going to spend time with people in my life, I want people who are a little more encouraging and supportive of me. And she was nice, but not like rooting. Like she was someone who would eventually root for me. And I was trying to root for her, but it just wasn't happening here. And that's okay. Like, not everyone has to be my friend. I used to kind of think that way. So once you start doing this work, you are going to see your mask fall away. Now, that's presuming that we all have masks. I must have some sort of mask here with you, but it is so much less than it has been because I've been a people pleaser, a performer. And once you clear the negative voices, let yourself be you, build yourself up, you're gonna be surprised, happily surprised at the things that you create and do and are, and the singing in the kitchen, okay? Like, this is something we hear people say a lot, but it could take different forms. It could be laughing really loud at jokes. It could be flexing in front of a therapist. It could be you stumbling over your words when you're talking. It could be you wearing something really weird, but it makes you feel joy. These are the small, little, authentic pieces of you that have been hammered down by the critical people that you have let into your life. And let in, yeah, but you kind of didn't have a choice. You were subject to the voices of when you were little, and now it's your time to take hold and take charge because you have a choice. You have a choice. And I'm making that choice. Are you? I also stepped away from coaching for a while. I stepped away from YouTube for a while because I just had to clear the clutter before I went back out there. I wanted to show up as my most authentic self. Like the beginning example, even someone like Eddie Vedder got disrupted by someone calling him a sellout. And that voice getting to him, it was a sign that he didn't know who he really was. So don't be like Eddie Vedder. He might have gotten better by now. Eddie might have got it better. That's it from me. Thanks all for listening.